I would disregard what I had prepared for you. But you know, I think I'm going to share it with you because I've been listening and trying to pick up what's happening with people in general. As I drive back and forth between, here I live on the north side of Milwaukee, and I work here, and so I get to listen to a lot of radio, and I try to listen to a lot of talk radio, but I also listen to what's happening in the news. And I think we're living in really critical times right now. And no one really knows exactly what to do, nor what to expect. And so when times are tough, we can figure it out. We know how to make do, whereas others don't. And particularly women of color, we have figured out over the years how to enhance ourselves as well as our careers. Obama stated last November 4th that this is our time, this is our moment. And I really believe that because I think as Americans we have just grown accustomed to having things, everything. Until you travel to other countries, you see that that's not the case. We have it good over here, even if we're in a different state than we are right now, and new ways of doing things. Perhaps more service-oriented, perhaps more careful about how we live, perhaps more conscious of our surroundings, perhaps more deliberate in planning our futures. And if you've been watching the news, it doesn't matter these days if you've been high up. There are people who've lost their jobs who were used to earning up close to $1 million. They don't know how to deal with that. They don't know how to make something out of nothing. And sometimes you hear about them doing bad things to themselves, like jumping off of buildings and everything. You haven't heard about women doing that lately, have you? Women know how to manage things in many cases. And you don't hear about many people of color doing those kinds of things because we've been in those situations where things have been taken away from us because guess what? We haven't been in control all the time, so we've learned how to live.
With the economy the way it is, if they have found the budget for those dollars to put a job out there, then that's something that you won't have to worry about. I know with ours, we've had to cut positions, but we haven't hired for those positions, so they're not like out there. We have departments who have said, well, we just can't put this position out there because, so we haven't had any layoffs per se, but positions that they wanted to post, they had to take down and really rethink. But anything that's already out there, we are hiring for. So jobs are everywhere. I always tell people, technology is just the greatest tool in the world. I know that if you are a little bit older, from a different generation, you may not think so. But this day and age, technology, it is what it is. So a lot of times you're going to find a lot of the jobs, whether it's through career websites. For instance, I know that we do a lot of postings through Career Builder and Monster.com and Yahoo. For our higher ed jobs, we do it with Inside Higher Ed, the Chronicle. And so it's great now. It's a cost to us as an employer to post, but as someone looking for a job, it's free for you. And I always say, if you're looking for something, whether it's part-time, full-time, there's all kinds of websites.
Basically, my overview today was I was going to talk about self-examination, and I don't mean our breasts or those kinds of things. But equally important is we need to sit down, and this is where you're going to spend the most of your time, is really addressing what it is you're going to do and why. Because it just looks so much easier. The grass is always greener on the other side to just jump in, but in this day and age with our resources being tighter than skin on a grape, and you know, if you've got something good going on right now, maybe it's not the time to take that big leap of faith. You know, let's do some real good self-examination, and I have a series of things to be asking yourself as you go through that process. Second thing is choosing the business that's right for you. How many of us are really involved in technical, highly skilled positions? Like, well, I'm an appraiser, so that's not
Made a mistake, as young people can do. I got pregnant. When I was a teenager, I dropped out of school so I could work full-time, take care of my son. So this is what I had to do at the time. I was born and raised in poverty. I needed the money. So I dropped out of school to do that. It was only when I moved to Wisconsin from Americus, Georgia, back in 1985, is when I went to MATC downtown, and they had tutors there for me. I went to those tutors, they helped me, and I was able to do all of my tests for the GED. So I got my GED from MATC. By that time, the MATC Truax Campus, this campus here, had opened. I was invited to attend school here, and I always wanted to know about computers. So I went to MATC. Why you should go to college.
Even though we're old,
I'm sorry.
even though we're old.
Oh, I am too.
Oh.
I was an adult student going back to school. It's really tough. There are times I cried, especially working on graduate level calculus, something I didn't take in high school because I was a high school dropout. So it was pretty tough there, but it happened for me. And just like Dr. D talked about earlier, right now, things are very competitive. As you know, with the economy, people are losing jobs. High school diploma. Look at the unemployment rate as of 2008, 9%. Look at the median weekly earnings, $426. This is for someone who has no high school
When I
education.
teach cross-cultural communications, we look at what is culture. And culture, actually, Edward T. Hall, who's an anthropologist, he talks about the fact that there is no one aspect of human life that is not touched by culture. And that means your personality, that means how people express themselves. For example, from my standpoint, if you tie my hands, I couldn't open my mouth. So you know, I talk with my hands. And sometimes people are kind of distracted because I'm talking with my hands, right? So the way we think, you know, some of us are linear thinkers, some of us are process thinkers. And so sometimes if you're writing a report or you're putting something together, what is really interesting is that sometimes, for example, we may have a tendency to write longer sentences or use more quality. In Brazil, but I was raised in Peru. I went to school in France and Morocco. And then I came here to continue my education, met this musician guy, married him, moved to Beloit, number for sure. If I roll my eyes every time you walk in, after a while, the exercise itself that tell you whether you're high context or low context. But if you're extremely high context, all these things are important. All these things are natural to you. Okay, so the importance of the conversation and the person that you are talking with. You have to respect the person. You have to acknowledge the person. You have to listen to the person, not just talk. The gestures. So again, you know, here, you know, I'm high context. The setting. So we get schizoid because we have to behave in a certain way at home, and then we have to behave in a certain way at work sometimes. And that may even imply that we use different languages, even if you speak English in relationship to me. So are you high, are you low? Sometimes people in the exercise are 11-11, right? So it's the same. It's 22 questions to it. And so sometimes what happens is that you may be high context when everything is going right. But if somebody goes wrong, you become low context.